Welcome to this talk on resilience. This topic is actually very important to learn how effectively we can come out of the failure. In our process of learning, we often face some kinds of failure at certain points of time. While some people can come out effectively, others don't. In fact, many students develop the habit of coming out very effectively, whom we call as resilient student. Others fail to make it. They suffer from some kind of frustration, they suffer some kind of anxieties and reaction to such anxieties and frustration. Today we would like to give you some idea about what is resilience and why some people can make it, what are their characteristics and how we can develop such kind of resilience. So, with this note, we would like to go for certain areas that we are likely to cover. So, the topics that or the concepts that we are going to cover are such as you see. First of all, we will tell you what do we mean by resilience. That means we need to operationalize the concept of resilience first, and then we would like to identify who is resilient and what are their characteristics. How do we identify those people who are resilient? From there we will move to some examples in everyday life, and we would also like to give you some ideas about the biological viewpoints of resilience. Although most people suggest that there is no biological vertical behind resilience, but we would like to give you some hint about if there is any biological relevance to this psychological phenomenon called resilience. And then we will move to resilience in everyday life. With these concepts, I would like to first go ahead with the operational definition of resilience. Let us see what do we mean by resilience. Now, resilience is a process of adapting well in face of failure. At the outset, I told you that in our process of learning, I would rather say effective learning, we at times face certain kinds of failure. Due to certain trauma, threat or tragedy, we fail to adapt with the environment at times, but resilient people actually can do that. Therefore, people who are resilient, they know how to adapt well in face of such kind of failure. And as I just mentioned you, it is more like an ordinary magic and there is no extraordinary behavior. It means that resilience as a phenomenon, a psychological strength, can be acquired by anybody. It does not require any biological vertical. This much we have known up till, although I will give you some hint about if there is any biological or genetic issues behind. A resilient person actually face difficulty like a non-resilient people. Only difference is that a resilient person process information differently, behave differently as compared to non-resilient people. So, it is important for us to understand who is this resilient person. Now, a resilient person is a person who knows either to win or to learn. There is nothing called failure in their terminology, in their dictionary. They consider failure as a learning process, because when we succeed or win, we do not feel frustrated, but a resilient person do not feel frustrated even if they do not win. They consider every failure a learning process. They understand that all failures are temporary. In fact, nobody fails throughout their life. So every failure comes with a transient value. That is, it stays for some time, and then once again people stand up and succeed again. But those who cannot adapt to that temporary failure, they actually succumb to a great degree of frustration. When resilient people fail, they develop some determined action. In fact, we always say that a non-resilient people at times are very enthusiastic, but a resilient people remain deterministic. The difference is that enthusiasm is something where the target is set based on success, but determinism is something where the target is set based on failure. That is, the person understands that he may fail or she may fail well ahead of time, and therefore even if they fail, they get angry like anybody else, but their anger is paired with a very determined action. They always identify themselves as survivors, that even after failure they could come out of that trauma. They are never considered themselves as a victim, and they find meaningfulness in every effort. So failure is not a zero-sum effect for them. If they fail, they understand that they have learned by that process something which would be very essential for the next step to succeed effectively. So with this note, we would like to know who are these people, that is, what are their characteristics, people who are resilient. First of all, they self-regulate and set boundaries, and they believe that they can change the situation, and they never believe that they are failing because of certain situation which is otherwise fixed. In the previous slide, I had shown you the example of Sunita Williams, who got stuck in the space for very long period, even though she was to come back to this earth very quickly. She could not, she was stuck because of certain technical glitches, but she never lost hope. So she never got frustrated. She could regulate herself, she could set boundaries for herself, and they believe, and she believed that she can change the situation. They view that the stress will only get them stronger. If there is a stress, they continue to see opportunity in all challenges. In fact, those who want to maintain status quo, they would always like stability in their life. But those who are resilient people, they always approach certain dynamic situation, certain challenges, and if there are challenges, there would be stress, and if there are stress, there are opportunities. So they find lot of opportunities whenever they get stress, and in that opportunity, in that stress, they find themselves more stronger. They cultivate self-awareness, remain very flexible, do not develop emotional glaciers. It means that in frustration, they do not develop lot of emotions. They try to logically understand why have they failed. Some people try to develop lot of emotional reactions just to appear strong. Sometimes they say, okay, nothing has happened, they will come back only at the face value, not in real value. But resilient people are always cultivating self-awareness in real value. They just don't want to appear strong. If they are frustrated, they fail fast. They react to it and come back to their line of understanding why they should come back very quickly. There are some more characteristics. Let us try to understand them. They practice acceptance. That is, they accept every situation. They witness and experience the full range of emotions absorb lessons only to bounce back. The example that you see, the photograph that you see, is of a lady called, her name is Arunima Sinha. She lost her one leg, due to an unfortunate event. While she was traveling in the train, she was pushed out by some dacoits. She lost her leg, and she was a national level basketball player. While in the hospital, she decided that she is not going to lie down forever. She came back and started thinking what next she could do. With one leg amputated, she ultimately conquered Everest. This is what is called resilience. They experience the full range of emotions and they bounce back thereafter. They are not let down by their frustrations. They consider possibilities, look in a different way that they were not considering. That is, once some failure is there, they just don't get stuck into that. They try to understand whether they can get back to the path of success through a different pathway or not. That is what is Arunima Sinha. That is why the example has been given. So, in one way, she could not achieve her dream to be a national level basketball player due to this unfortunate event, but she maintained her positive outlook and came back very strongly and did even much better than becoming a national level basketball player. And they have got a very strong internal locus of control. They do not blame others. There are four kinds of people who are actually try to succeed in their life or try to defend their frustration in a different way. One kind of people, they aggressively assert their capacity. We call them assertive people. Some people try to compromise. If they fail, they try to say that, well, this is beyond their capacity. Some people try to avoid the situation, simply saying that, well, they are not capable of succeeding, and some people try to defend their failure, blaming others. So, the resilient people do not blame others, do not avoid a situation, neither compromise it. They may fail still, but they assert. They aggressively try to attain their goal. So, they have got a very strong internal locus of control. They do not look to others in order to support their position. So, these are the general characteristics of the resilient people. Now, let us see some of the examples. These examples are very interesting for all of us to understand. Now, the example of a soldier, his name is Chetan Cheta. He was hit by 9 bullets, and after getting 9 bullets he survived. I am told that couple of bullets could not be taken out even when he was coming out of the hospital, but the day he was released from the hospital, his first reaction is to go back to duty. He is from CRPF, that is Central Reserve Police Force, and his resilience is such that even after getting 9 bullets, he did not stop. So, it is told generally in the name of soldiers, either in military or paramilitary, that if a soldier gets a bullet, he or she must be strong enough to face the second bullet. After getting the first bullet, and if the soldier survives and becomes anxious about the second bullet, he or she is no longer a soldier. So, a soldier like Chetan Cheta is highly resilient. Even after getting shot by terrorists with 9 bullets, he was ready to return to duty the day he was released from the hospital. Another example is Mr. Hanumantappa Kapada. He had an unfortunate event. He was stuck in an avalanche, buried under 20 feet, 25 feet snow, and in an air pocket he could survive for 6 days under it. Just imagine, in a temperature surrounding minus 30 to 40 degree, he could survive in a particular capsule within the air pocket, within the ice pocket, where he survived for 6 days, died only after reaching hospital. He was taken out, he was searched out by the military, and who are in duty adjacent, but after reaching the hospital, unfortunately he could not survive. His resilience is that he could survive under such condition for so many years, so many days. Another example is by Abhinandan Varthaman. He was under captivity in an enemy state, you are all aware of, in Pakistan, and chose to return to his base in Srinagar instead of visiting home. He was given leave to visit home, just to make sure that his trauma is subsided, and he could come back to his normalcy after a certain period of time visiting home. But he decided not to go back home and return to his base in Srinagar once again to fight back. These are some of the excellent examples from Indian Armed Forces or security forces. But we have more examples, just not in Indian Armed Forces or paramilitary forces. Deepa Malik is a lady. She had a spinal tumor. More than 80 stitches were there in her body, paralyzed waist down, and she won 18 international medals and got 2 silver medals in Paralympics. Perhaps the first lady, Deepa Malik, got this medal on behalf of India. Mary Kom, we also know, the most successful boxer in the history of India. Several times she was the world champion. She was a mother of 2 children, yet she defended her title as world champion. A resilient lady. Milkha Singh, we all know, the Indians' most revered Olympian. He never got an Olympic medal, but he is the most celebrated person, sports person in our country. A gallant loser in 1960 Rome Olympics. She could not succeed ultimately to get a medal, but he is actually the person whom we all revere as a great resilient sports person in our country. So these are some of the examples, and these examples are all known to us, and we consider them as the examples for our next generation. So we would like to know if there is any biological relevance to this concept of resilience. That is, are there some biology behind in the development of resilient characteristics? Let us see. As I told you earlier, that it's more a ordinary magic. As of now, we are not very sure if there is any biological relationship with the people who are already resilient, but it has been found through studies, particularly the functional MRI, which is functional magnetic resonance studies. It has been found that if people are under constant stress due to frustration, maybe due to failure, some of the neural structure in the ventromedial portion of the prefrontal cortex, as you see here in the first picture of this brain, this area actually is considered the seat of higher cognition and emotion. Now, if a person is under constant stress, these areas get damaged, and this area has got great neuroflexibility. If it is damaged, the flexibility is lost. So, the person becomes permanently the person remains frustrated after failure. He or she would not be able to come out because of their chronic stresses. This much of evidence we have got, and this area is called ventromedial portion of the prefrontal cortex in the brain. So, people who have got higher neuroflexibility in the ventromedial area of prefrontal cortex can actually become very resilient. Those who have got chronic stress, their area gets, this PFC area gets obliterated, connected, the structure gets distorted in that area, and they fail to develop resilience. We would like to see whether there is any genetic root for resilience or not. The genetic root is also denied. Actually, there is no such study that we have found thus far that there is a genetic root for resilience. The power of perception in this book of The Biology of Belief by Bruce Lipton, we understand that your belief system works as a strength to your resilient behavior. Bruce Lipton calls it as power of perception. He says that our beliefs shape our biology more than our genes do. That is, belief acts as a filter between what you see and how you see. What you see is the real world, and how you see is your belief, and the belief system acts as a filter. So, the conscious and subconscious mind work together to shape our reality. That is consciously what you have been seeing, and subconsciously that is your habitual response to life signals, that is your primitive belief that you would be able to get rid of all those frustrations, is a belief which is guided more by subconscious area of our mind. So, they blend together in order to shape our reality. This much we know. So, we directly do not find any genetic connectivity between resilience and the person's capacity to become resilient and those who are non-resilient. But this much is clear, that our power of perception and our belief are very important in developing resilience. If you believe that you would be able to come out of the trauma, if you believe that you are capable of coming back to your root of success, then you would be able to do that. So, question is why failure is also important at times. This does not mean one should not fail. Failure is very important. Actually, failure helps people to develop better resilience. Actually, we learn more from our failure than from our successes. If you succeed, you quickly forget why have you succeeded. But then if you fail, you think continuously why have you failed. Resilient people think differently, process information differently, and come back with the path of success. So, we find out that what does not work, so that we can adjust our future attempts. So, resilient people understand that if I have failed, why have I failed? What is the logical reason behind it? So, they change their course of action and come back to the path of success. Therefore, it is very important that we also fail at times, but failure must not have any negative consequences or social embarrassment. Therefore, in a safe learning environment, we would be able to improve skills without the fear of negative consequences. So, failure is important, and resilience is therefore important, because unless you fail, you probably cannot become resilient. So, how to bounce back from failure? Is better that we accept failure as a natural process, learn from it, and allow it to destroy we, we, we accept it as a natural process, that if you have failed, you, 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 you it's not a very unnatural thing. We all fail at some point of time in our life. It's important that we fail fast, that work quickly through the feelings and decide that we have to get back. Some people don't fail fast. They, once they fail, they brood over it, they think over it, they remain frustrated, they react over it and take a long time to come back. So it's very important that once we fail fast. We realize that failure is not a personal defeat. Context plays also a big role. We do not fail simply because of our ability. There are contexts which are changing in everyday life, therefore context plays also a very big role. So instead of blaming yourself, you can think that context has a different role to play in your failure. Therefore, it is important that we keep going even after failure. When do we need to develop resilience in your daily life? I mean, when there are failures in your personal life, away from your studies also, small things in personal life, you have failed and you should be able to come back. When you feel that you are criticized personally, some people are very sensitive, they actually cannot bear the burden of personal criticism. For them also it is very important that they become resilient, they should be able to absorb the shock and come back. When you are challenged that in your performance, that is your capacity is being challenged by others, so you need to be resilient. Even if you are doing very well in the past, doesn't mean you will continue to do very well in the past, because there are competitions in every day and you should be able to come out of it, and that if somebody is challenging your performance, you should be able to face it constructively. When the nature of work outside is outside your comfort zone, that is when something you have been doing on a daily basis comfortably because of your ability, but sometimes you do such an work which is beyond your comfort zone, at that point of time you should also be very resilient. When your ability to work stretches beyond your limit, you can do certain things within 24 hours, but if it is stretching beyond, you should be able to resilient enough to take it forward and do it effectively. And when you are finding it difficult to manage relationship, under such conditions also you should be very resilient. So these are certain areas where you should be able to develop resilience. Let us remember that self-efficacy is very important, resilience is also very important in order to adapt very well in face of frustration and trauma. Self-efficacy is something when you have got the belief in your own capacity to execute behavior. I told you in the theory, epigenetics theory, that it is your belief which matters. If you believe that you would be able to get back to produce the necessary performance, you would be able to. It reflects your confidence in the ability to exert control over your own motivation. Some people easily get demotivated after failure, or maybe in some kind of social environment. But people who have got self-efficacy, they can actually come back because of their confidence that yes, they know that they can do it, and they exert control over their own motivation. They don't get demotivated very easily. So when it comes to resilience, resilient people sustain motivation, they can regulate emotion, they can focus on concentration, that is they believe that passion is more than purpose. Their motivation keeps on going because of the passion, just not about the purpose. They can regulate their emotion because, as I said, they do not put forward a emotional glacier just to appear strong. They actually can regulate during disappointment. They express their frustration but fail fast. They come back very quickly and they focus and concentrate very well. They can tune out distraction very easily. So with all this, finally I would like to give you some more examples that India have recorded its best ever medal haul in Paris Olympics with 29 medals, including 7 gold, 9 silver and 13 bronze, all Paralympians. That is, they are all handicapped in some way, and with a very strict criteria who would be considered as handicapped or who would be considered as challenged people are some who are actually physically unable, but psychologically so capable that they can actually they could bring so much of honor to the country in the Paralympics game. So, with all this, in sum, it is a process of adapting well in face of in face of failure, trauma, threat or tragedy. Resilient people either win or learn. They self-regulate and view stress to get stronger. For them, failure is important at time, but especially in safe environment, and resilience is a ordinary magic with little biological influence. We still do not know whether there is any biological influence or not. So, anybody can develop failure. So, there are some books which are available. If you are interested, you can go through them. Thank you so much.